thought about making this video for a while, but I couldn't come up with how exactly I wanted to word it until I just finished crafting my first legendary, Orien's Bite, the shiniest, flashiest greatsword I've ever owned.
That belongs in a museum!
Hello again and welcome back to the Heavy Hat. In today's video we're going to go over why I think Guild Wars 2's greatest strength is also its weakness. In most MMOs and honestly most video games, there's what's called a gear treadmill. It's where no matter where you're at, there's a next level up and you can continue to work towards getting better gear. The next piece of armor has X% better attack power or Y% better stamina. In a lot of games you even have the ability to take a piece of gear you own and continually upgrade it to be better. Now, I want to be clear, there's some massive issues with this game philosophy as seen in games like World of Warcraft, where after every few expansions they're forced to do what's called a stat squish. Ouch. That way it brings down everyone's stats, such as attack power or mana, back down to a reasonable level, so that they don't have level 1s walking around with 10 health, while level 100s have 2.5 million health. And while that might be a slight exaggeration, it does make the point. Guild Wars 2 has tried to get around that problem by making their gear treadmill a lateral progression. What that means is you can hit almost max level, and essentially have almost the best gear within minutes, if you have the money to buy it from the in-game auction house anyways. Their own CEO said this when the first expansion came out.
Your max level characters with your top tier gear today are still going to be your max level characters with your top tier gear tomorrow. I think you need real character progression that you can keep using to evolve your characters long after your max level and long after you have the best gear in the game.
In philosophy, this is phenomenal, because it means that any work you've put into the game isn't 100% nullified and made completely useless by a new expansion where suddenly there's a totally new tier of gear to work towards. Now, I mentioned that in Guild Wars 2 there's no treadmill. And before someone says it, it's not 100% true, but it is true for the most part. There are different tiers of gear that you can get with a very small increases to stats each time. For example, there's basic gear, fine gear, masterwork gear, rare gear, exotic gear, extended gear, and then legendary gear. Ultimately though, if someone has full exotic gear, you're ready for just about any game mode and can be completely competitive in anything. But one thing I want to point out, look at the difference between extended gear and legendary gear. 0%. I mentioned before that I recently crafted my first legendary weapon. The reason I did it is simply because I wanted to do something that not a lot of people have done. While yes, there are a bunch of people walking around with legendary gear, it still represents a very small portion of the total population. I will say though, it feels a little odd having spent so much time and in-game money getting a legendary weapon for it to be just as good at dealing damage as the weapon I replaced it with. Now, obviously I don't want to discredit the massive quality of life legendary gear brings to the game. If you're unaware, legendary items allow you to be able to swap stats at any time, create totally new builds with little effort. That one item is available to all characters and all builds simultaneously at the same time. That can use it. You can't make a thief use a greatsword. That'd be a cool build though. Oh, I think that was in Terra. But in my opinion, a legendary weapon should be that same small bit better than the previous tier of Ascended gear. For example, Ascended gear is roughly 6% better than exotic gear, because there's a lot of effort that goes into making it or buying it on the auction house. It just seems odd that in the dozens, if not hundreds of hours you put into making a legendary, it's essentially just to make the game have a better quality of life than before. And to be more shiny, I guess. It's always that. I don't know, maybe I'm alone in this thought, and maybe I'm completely out of touch, but it just feels off. I generally do love the fact that I can take a 6-month break from Guild Wars, come back, and my in-game exotic gear or ascended gear is going to be just as good as it was 6 months ago. I can pick the game up like nothing happened. But I simply feel like there should be that small added extra for the players who dump hundreds of hours into crafting something special that few people have. Because I'll be honest, after crafting my legendary, I feel more empty than accomplished. Either way, I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on the subject, because everyone's opinions vary a lot. Some people say that the only reason they don't play Guild Wars 2 is because of the lack of gear treadmill. While on the flip side, people will say that that's the only reason they do play Guild Wars 2. Because there isn't one. What are your thoughts? Post them down below and I'd love to have a conversation about it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe because it truly does help me make more of these videos. But until next time guys, have fun.